Hello, welcome into the video portion of the podcast and the Twitch stream. Probably you're not watching it on the stream if you are watching it, because I only have one follower. And I didn't even announce that I was doing this. So whoever my one follower is, I really appreciate you following me. Hi, welcome to the podcast and Twitch stream. I'm continuing my career mode today. I figured that I can do a certain number of holes because the Corn Fairy season is not very long, and it won't take forever for me to get done with it as I do this podcast, and I won't have to rush it. So that the audio recording will be valid for people who just want to listen to the audio. I won't spend a lot of time talking about the game I'm playing, but rather spend time talking about my original material that I speak out of from that originates in my brain and then that I speak onto the earth. But anyway, if you are watching on the video, let me briefly tell you where we're at. Oh shoot, I can't find it. I'm never ready. Okay, PGA Tour career. And so pretty much, this will only take a minute. I missed the cut in the first event, which you might have gathered from the way that I was playing, but I'm not going to go and redo it. So now I'm in a hole for the rest of the season. Let me show you the schedule for the season, just so you know. The first tournament, as you can see here, was the Corn Fairy Tour opener. And I missed the cut, so I'm behind in the stand. I have other scheduled. They're all tournaments, so it might take me like 3 episodes to get through a round if I only get through 6 holes in a round. But that's as long as I need to take. But this is just a slow burn, even though it's terrible when people use that phrase. I don't. Just strike that I used it. This is a very slow burn, though. It's like the slowest burn of a career. I mean, it's not... if you compare it to real life, it actually takes a lot longer for somebody to get through the Corn Fairy Tour than it'll take on this podcast. But so I'm about to enter into the Sand Dune Classic, and it's a 2-round tournament. I haven't started it yet. I missed the cut in the first one. So I'm in a hole for the season. And I'll let you know as the season goes on where I am in the standings and whatnot. Know a little bit more of what's going on. Difficult in the character looks stupid because they set it up that all of the settings you choose. It's part of the problem is they don't have enough hairstyle choices, and the only ones they have are like modern hairstyles that they don't like. It's regardless, I'm having trouble making Barge look stupid so that it's funnier. Like the Barge that I was using the first time I played this, that guy was a complete asshole, the way that he looked. And, but this is the 100th episode of my podcast. I woke up this morning with a twitch in my spine. Something like a pinched nerve in my neck. Pinched nerve unlike any that I've ever experienced before. And it made it so that I couldn't move my head up, down, or to the right. I could move my head to the left slowly, starting this morning when I woke up. And then if I accidentally moved my head up or down or something, I would get this horrible paralyzing pain across all of my neck and head. I couldn't even move my shoulders. But then I took some ibuprofen, and that helped. And then I took an anti-inflammatory. So when this episode is over, I'm going to reward myself with another anti-inflammatory. And so I'm really looking forward to that. But as much as you can look forward to an anti-inflammatory, I mean, some people have been in a worse position than me, that they were probably more excited about an anti-inflammatory than I am right now. Oh, I meant to change his... Damn it, I didn't change his opening round shirt. So now he's wearing... I revised Barge's look last episode to this one. So far, the only way I've been able to make Barge look stupid and funny is by giving him a lot of acne and moles. But I'll improve on that as time goes on. This is the Sand Dune Classic. I don't know if that's a real Corn Ferry Tour event, but I'm guessing that the course I'm playing on is a simulated real course. It's got to be. That's the way these golf video games work. But um, yes, but yes.
Going with the pitching wedge here. That's going right.
I did a bit on stage for my stand-up where I was talking about whether or not aliens are gay. And the premise is something like I mean, I asked the audience, like, do you think aliens are gay? Like, are they so technologically advanced that all of them are gay? And then when they arrive here, and I'm making the point that, like, I do have to take some time to study these shots, but I won't describe that I'm doing it. So, there's just going to be a silent pause whenever I'm doing it. That's much better. Just kidding. I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna mindlessly play it. I think I can do that better now because I did a little bit of the game. Wow, that one really got launched. I love that it's still rolling. I love how far away from the hole I am right now. That makes me happy. But I guess it literally does because I am smiling. I'm smiling through my pain, through my tears. And so 7 yards, we got an 8 yards, 8 yard plus 6 yard carry. So I have to hit it kind of hard. And oh, okay, no roll because this is the most slanted green ever. Perfect. This is what I wanted. And so anyway, looks like I will have to do more work on this game because I'm about to double bogey this hole right in the beginning. Yay! Great. And so the premise of that joke, well, I make a point like, are they so technologically advanced? I'm just saying, like, aliens are pretty gay, like the whole thing, people involving themselves in it. I say, yeah, I think aliens would be gay, but they're not nearly as gay as people who identify with aliens. And then those people aren't nearly as gay as the movie Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, because that movie is peak gay. That's about as gay as it gets. Like, we would probably go and show that to the aliens that arrived. We're like, hey, you should see this movie if we are anticipating that they're gay. And they'd be like, oh, we've already seen it. Those aliens did, probably, I'm guessing, I'm assuming. But let me tell you something about the movie Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Is that it has one of the greatest moments in all of cinema. I would have to say probably top 5 greatest moments in all of movies. And that moment, do you know what it is? Because it's the best moment in the movie, which I guess is arguable because there's a lot of memorable moments in that movie.
Going with the hybrid.
Get over that trap. Get over there, land on the green. Yes. Get in the hole. Get in the hole. Get in the hole. Get in the hole. Oh!
Particularly from that terrain.
I got completely robbed on that. Anyway, yeah, I almost eagled out from the fairway. So wild. Oh, wow. But the best moment of that movie is when the lead character, that's the woman, is doing the music box thing. Because the guy does a music box too. I don't really remember his as much. Or like what his performance is about. I was gonna watch that before because I was thinking about I might talk about it. I was gonna watch it before I don't. But I know that her performance, she's talking about being a wind-up doll in a music box, so it's kind of meta. But the reason that it's one of the best moments in all of cinema is because of there's so many levels being illustrated or demonstrated by her as she's acting. There's a lot of levels of it going on at one time. And really, it goes as deep as, like, her, the actress. Like, you have to consider that, like, what her motivations are, just the person behind the actor, because it's like she's a wind-up doll in a music box. Like, first of all, there's the level that she's just, her act for the people in the kingdom or the castle or whatever it is. Her act is that she's a wind-up doll in a music box. There's that level. And then next, also it's the level that she's pretending to be a performer for the people in the castle, because she's pretending to be a performer so that she can get into the castle because she has ulterior motives, because she's in there, but the people in the castle don't know that. So she's like pretending to be some sort of professional performer for them, like because she's just putting this on that she is good at this thing where she comes out of the music box as if this is her act in life, or like this is her profession when it isn't. So she's like a double agent. So she's, first of all, she is like a performer, and so she's naturally pretending, but then she's pretending to be a pretender. Um, and But then you understand that she's a actress also. So she's um so at that point you realize that her character is pretending to be a performer. So she as a person, like the actress behind it, is pretending to be a person pretending to be a performer. And so there are all these levels going on at one time. And like she's not just sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I shouldn't. Oh God, this better not be out of bounds. Is that out of bounds? Can I still hit it out of there?
This is not a good outcome. Buried in the deep.
Okay, yeah, I can. But basically, there's all these levels, but she's like being an actor for the other actors that are already in the castle. Like she's pretending for them. And all of it kind of comes through just in her performance, because the real kicker is that she is singing about, um, she's alluding to all of these levels that she's performing to just with what she's saying, because her performance is about how she's a doll on a music box and that all of them are watching her. But it's like the words that she's saying in her song address the actors in the room in the kingdom, but they also address the audience that's watching the movie, because it's like all these people are watching her. But also her performance is like, um she's doing it perfectly where she's pretending to be a doll, yet everybody in the room, uh, like the people watching the movie and the actors in the room know that she's a person, but she's acting so much like a doll that you get confused. Like I remember the first few times I watched it thinking that it's almost like she pulled it off. Like I don't even know if the actors in the room, like, uh it's just like her about it and alluding to that she is performing is like it's actually a fourth dimension in addition to the three dimensions I mentioned earlier, and it is like the break the fourth wall dimension. So she, like, uh you can see three walls and a fourth wall all represented in her performance. But like because she's singing about it, just she's just like dancing all over the line between real and fake, and it's not just for the person watching the movie, but it's like almost for the actors in the room, because she does it so well. Because the actors in the room have to pretend that they don't know, like a pretender. Um,
Looks like they're going with the pitching wedge.
and so it's really kind of miraculous. But what's weird is that her as the person is like through all of those levels. Like the thing that's consistent through all of it is actually her. Or like that's the thing that you point to be the realest level is like the actress putting it on. But then if you consider what that looks like from her perspective, it actually goes even deeper than that, because her as an actress, that only goes as deep as like people watching it and making judgments about her, like being able to perceive, like from an outside observer, we can only perceive as deep as she is a actress putting all of these things on. But like from her perspective, it maybe actually gets a little bit deeper, because she isn't the actress only. That's why it's deeper. Like, she's more things than just an actress, and so like her appearing as an actress is only one of a number of probabilities. Like, but what you would want to consider with all of these levels of her performing is like people get into the territory certainly of saying that the world is a simulation. Partially what they mean is like movies that we watch are all simulations, and video games are simulations. They're like alternative scenarios to the scenario of the actual life that you're living. But it's like a movie happens and that's a different world where that movie is happening. Like it's a completely different scenario or like a different simulation. But what people talk about with that is like alternate realities. You get into the territory of considering any possible reality as just the probability of that is the real thing. And like, so there's the world according to the characters that are watching her put on this performance in the room, the characters that are being duped by her, that are like just losers that, like the king, are in the kingdom. Like there's the perspective of them, and for them, the most real thing is that she's just this is just her act. And it's almost like when people talk about that the world is a simulation, and the reason why it's hard to say that that's anything more than just bullshit is because they're kind of alluding to that, like, consider the probability that that is the real universe, is like the characters watching her and what they think, because like what is the real her, and you, as far as we know, because we're like the wisest level, like the people watching the movie would know the deepest about it. uh that would make it so that the greatest probability, like the most likely thing, or really the most real thing, the thing that presents itself the most at the end of the day, is that she's just the actress putting all of those things on. But it's really like that's only as far as our knowledge takes us, because even even a person knowing about the movie doesn't know deeper knowledge of it that happened on set, which is that she did the whole thing in one take. And so there's like even deeper knowledge about like what she put on when she performed that would enlighten you to more things about it, or consider more probabilities. But it's like I'm saying, we would have to choose at the end of the day that the most real thing is her being the actress putting all of that on. Um, but even that isn't certain, because if you do something like consider it from her perspective, she's actually more than an actress, or like there's because there's possibly more knowledge to be added to the situation, the perception kind of always possibly goes deeper. And so it's hard to pin down what the real scenario is that's happening in the world, because knowledge always goes deeper. Um, I guess is kind of what allows people to declare that we're in a simulation, because it's hard to pin down reality since everybody's reality is actually different. Um, like everybody's on a different timeline, and life, according to any one person, is like seen through their eyes and is like basically a different world. Um, Truth, person to person, is different. There's like, it's kind of like a whole different world is seen in any one person. Holy shit. How about that?
Good looking putt.
Get in there.
The putt
Was that a
drops, and
birdie?
that's back-to-back birdies.
Back-to-back birdies. I'm even par. I knew I could do this. I knew I could remain
Even par now.
a viable golfer while making a podcast. So I'm even par through 3 holes. The Sand Dune Classic. I guess my goal is to get through 6 holes here. So I'm right on pace. But like ideally maybe get through 9. I'm not probably not going to get through 9. but I'll probably get faster at it as time goes on. I just need to focus on my shot when I'm shooting it.
Ooh, back there, horsey.
That's going to be a good shot also. Yeah, but this is my 100th episode, and, you know, there's probabilities, there's...
This is from miles away.
It's a wave of probabilities that collapses into whatever you're choosing to observe, but you really only get to observe one of those levels. It's just like, what does the probability wave collapse into? It collapses at the point that you observe something. She, in that scene, is presenting a number of probabilities through which whatever energy that she is, like, you would want to get to the you would want to say like, oh, she's a person, like beyond the acting part of it, she's just a person. But person is also an actor or actress kind of term, like coming with the territory of person is a whole set of actions that like involves certain acting, like there's a culture that goes along with whatever it means to be a person. So even being a person is like is a level at which people are acting, is kind of what I'm saying. Beyond her being a person even is just kind of like she, and I would argue this is true for all people, is like an energy that goes deeper. So like whatever energy or frequency vibration that she presents is consistent through all of these levels, even beyond the level of that we know she's a person being an actress. Because actress is an act that she's putting on. Obviously, didn't need to that because you already knew. 42 feet here with a 48 feet. What is this, downhill or something? I gotta go a little further. I'm gonna go like that. I'm gonna hit the putt. Get there. Get there. It must have been downhill or something. That must be why they started me off where they did.
Oh, he's up, Tiger. An opportunity to make their par.
But whatever level that you're able to observe, like you're limited to observations. We're limited to singular definitions. Like, I need to line up this putt here. I need to line it up. This is for par. This is for par, folks. Folks, this is for par here.
Starts off on a good line.
Get in there. Yes, just got it in, just barely. It's just that like the probability, I'm talking about particle wave duality, and just a problem in the world is our inability to articulate the duality that happens everywhere all at once. That duality, as I just expressed, is like how she could possibly present herself at any one level, but she exists at very many different levels. Those very many different levels are like a wave, and then what she actually appears as is a definition or a point that you can actually observe, something practical. This is the relationship between something abstract and something practical. This duality exists everywhere, but I'd say one of the greatest ways in which humans are limited is we don't articulate that objectivity and subjectivity happen everywhere. I guess I really wanted to be informational today rather than whimsical. Yeah, so I woke up and then I had this terrible pinched nerve, and it was really painful if I moved in any direction. Move my shoulders, because then it would hurt. And that was tough for me. But I got through it with the power of modern medicine. And that's an option that we all need to take. But it's just kind of like the subjective and the objective
to play there.
what people need to consider is the relationship between multiplication and division, which is a mathematical, it's like the most fundamental thing about modern mathematics, I would argue, is the relationship between multiplication and division, because the relationship between integrals and derivatives is basically the same thing as the relationship between multiplication and division. But what I'm expressing to you is I'm trying to open up a dialogue about a practical solution to explaining the world to be a duality rather than just a single thing. Because the reason our language is limited is because we have the word objectivity and the word subjectivity, and because we understand things through definitions, or in other words, a one-to-one correspondence, where we say that subjective space, like we say the word subjectivity, and that represents this territory or this realm of thought over here, this definition over here. Objectivity represents this separate realm of thought over here. That's a one-to-one correspondence between the word and then the territory that it's representing. We do this for all words. This is the way that language operates. In a one-to-one correspondence, you see this is true just by looking at a dictionary. One word and then one description of what the territory that that word is representing is. That's the one-to-one correspondence for all of our words. There's a word and then there's like a description, all is essentially what I'm saying. But in reality, there's a lot of opposites that are conflated with each other. I wouldn't go so far as to say that all opposites, and I'm talking about like diametrically opposed opposites, obviously, but you can use opposite technically doesn't have to be two things that are like diametrically opposed. That's why I said that. But like in the case of subjectivity, objectivity, these are two opposites that are conflated with each other at every level that we can look at them in the world, because I'm talking about an object in a space, but yet, and so like an object, like my microphone in this room is contained by this room, yet the microphone is also not contained by the room if you just look at the perspective of the microphone. Like if the extent of the borders of the room are just the microphone, then the microphone is the room in that case. And so what I'm saying is that any one object is both a subjective and objective thing. And this happens everywhere, but it's what's described by the time-space continuum, which is one of the only mainstream phrases we have to describe the duality that I'm describing. And maybe what I'm describing is like language needs to evolve to create these products of words like time-space, but that time-space is a continuum. That's just describing what I described, is that these like two dimensions. But I'm saying how language is one-dimensional, essentially, and then what we need is for it to be presented on a graph, or we need to turn it into a two-dimensional plane where horizontal and vertical are conflated with each other on a graph or a plane. Like in a plane, horizontal and vertical are conflated with each other. So we need to create language that is two-dimensional, but where I'm saying a dimension is a whole language. And so how would that happen, or why would that happen? Or why is that necessary? Or like what's wrong with our language now? Let me see here. So this is 5 yards and then a 8-yard, 6-yard carry or something. And I'm chipping, yes, 8-yard carry, 5 yards and a 6-yard carry. Break, no, not that. Break left to right. And here we go. And then here it comes. We're gonna chip it, and then there it is. All right, that wasn't terrible.
Has this putt to save his par.
It's kind of like we have the words homogeneous and heterogeneous, and it's just that language always evolves, or like when we create things, we're creating them in an effort to be more specific or more intelligent. Like when something is created that wasn't created before, this is a new specific instance and it evolves our language in a more specific direction. If you consider that we're always creating things, we're creating more points, and since there are more points, things are getting more and more specific, more and more particular. Particulation is sort of like articulation. The more that you describe particular instances, is the better your ability to that you're articulating. Where articulation kind of describes your ability to be more specific in your explanation of yourself. Specificity, intelligence, particulation are all similar things. But I'm saying that, like, when we create things, we're always getting more specific. I'm saying that in the future, our language might inevitably start trying to go in the direction of figuring out what are the differences between like two main categories. The same way that a single cell splits to create two cells when a baby is born, or when a lot of things are born. Not every living thing, but whatever like the scientific classification is. Sexual or asexual reproduction, sexual reproduction. So many things when they're born, it's a cell and then it splits to become two cells, but all of the chromosomes, I believe, divide into two categories within the original cell before the cell splits. And I think it's possible that we're in a state of things where our language is one dimensional and we haven't, like, language maybe has a lot of room to grow. Like maybe it hasn't even, maybe it's yet to be born. Or like we're so far away from what language could potentially be. We don't know much. We don't know much about what it could become, but I'm talking about like over thousands of years, maybe, kind of thing. The way that language could evolve, because language is one dimensional now, and maybe we get to the point where we need to separate things into two categories, like what is the subjective and what is the objective. Like maybe that's the first division or the first important thing we need to do in order to create two-dimensional language. And do I have a plan for how two-dimensional language will be created? No, because I'm not that smart and humans aren't that smart. I don't know that this would happen in my lifetime. And most of it is just conspiracy and misinformation and nonsense. I understand that's theory. But like theory is they're conspiracies. That's not what I meant to say. A theory is, never mind. Something I thought about a couple days ago. I can't remember what it was exactly that I thought about, but the reason that our language is limited as it stands now, it's kind of like, what's so bad about our language now? It's perfectly fine. It's like maybe one of the greatest inventions or greatest machines that humanity has ever created. But it's just kind of like we don't know the difference between subjective and objective, and then it leads to us calling, like, we know little enough about objective versus subjective that we end up using the words interchangeably. Like when we say that you shouldn't treat a girl like she's an object, what we actually mean is that you shouldn't treat a girl like she's a subject or your subject, because the more nefarious reality is the one where you're being possessive of a girl, not the one where you're treating her like she's an object, because the word object literally translated means a thing outside of yourself or a thing in your path. And what's important about that is that the object is some completely different whole thing outside of you and something that you have to consider objectively. And so that's a positive thing. What you don't want to do, oh shoot, my computer's about to die. I forgot to plug it in. 1 second. Crisis averted. So we see that this is a limit of language, like we're not able to sort out the difference between objective and subjective because they're conflated everywhere in the world. This is just, that's what time and space is. It's the same way that even a scientist isn't able to articulate, like, this is where time ends and where space ends, or whatever. It's like a continuum. Subjectivity, objectivity is the same way. It's a continuum. But because of our lack of ability to categorize what is objective and subjective, where it's like we need to maybe divide everything into two categories or something, because of that, it leads to situations where we're using these words interchangeably, and this isn't really a problem. It's just that as things evolve, we create things and become more specific. Like the direction that things head is the direction that sorts out these differences so that we stop screwing up the wording, because we have these words to invoke the territory correctly. If we're doing it incorrectly, this is just a mishap or a flaw of the invention, and like eventually we'll sort it out. But another example of this is that the word homogeneity and then the word heterogeneity. Heterogeneity gets almost zero play in the world today, and homogeneity gets a little bit of play. People say it sometimes. Like homogeneity is relatively popular. People say that things are homogenized, or in other words, that they're all the same. But heterogeneity and homogeneity, heterogeneity describes diversity, the way that a collection of things are all mixed up, they're all diverse. A collection of things, all of those things are individual different things. That's what heterogeneity is describing. Like Europe is heterogeneous when you consider all of the different countries, but like the European Union is homogeneous. But basically, heterogeneity and homogeneity are conflated everywhere the same way subjectivity and objectivity are. Like they're almost like the same thing, but it's the same way that we use diversity and equality almost interchangeably in the world, where we're like both of those things are really good, but and we need to start a dialogue about them, which this is further evidence that we are working to sort these things out. When you hear about that a dialogue needs to be created over like diversity and equality, really the dialogue that needs to be initiated is we need to differentiate between these two things, or express them to be opposites of each other, because equality describes how everything is equal, diversity describes how everything is different. It's the same with homogeneity, describes how everything is like the same but in a different way than equality, and then heterogeneity describes how everything is different but in a different way than diversity. But that's the same thing. But essentially, a lot of times now, just because people don't have the word heterogeneous, they haven't heard it enough, they describe heterogeneous things to be homogeneous, in the same way that it's just that we use them interchangeably as long as we don't have very much knowledge or haven't encountered very many instances of them, of these things from other people saying them, that we can't like point out the differences. But like those are opposites that are conflated, but it's just the thing is that that opposite thing where the opposites are conflated, this can be expressed in like lots of opposites, besides the ones that I already mentioned. I don't know if it's all opposites. It might be something like that. Um, yeah. Yeah, it might be something like that. But this is episode number 100. I'm putting for par at the 5th hole of the Sand Dune Classic in the Corn Ferry Tour. This is my livelihood. Or something like that.
This one's looking good.
Yes, I made it.
To make a mid-range par putt.
That was for par. And I'm even par through 5 holes. I'm doing pretty well. I'll take that.
Our current leader is enjoying
Um,
a one-shot lead.
But all of the golf that I play in my career, you're going to see all of it. And it does mean something to me.
Time to tee off at the 6th.
And you just have to hear me say that rather than see it. As long as I said it, that's how you know. Yeah, I must be in a pretty serious mood rather than fun because I don't feel like saying anything fun. I feel like being informational. It's horrible. It's a horrible state of things to be in, and I can't get out of it. Sometimes when I do stand-up, it's the same way, and then it goes badly. Because, oh shit, I'm in a serious mood.
About that.
And then I get stuck in it, and it's like impossible to break free and be funny if you're like stuck in it. Like I'm defining myself to seriousness too much, and then people are expecting that with the next sentence I say or something. It's just like I like get stuck on that path. I get stuck in that groove and I can't get out, or the groove is a indented pathway, not something that's groovy. And so what I'm saying is like the creation of two-dimensional language, how would it come about?
16
You would have to find like what are the two categories ultimately described by two opposites? Is it time and space? Is it subjectivity and objectivity? How would you ever know? How would the world ever decide? But it's like it's weird that the world decides that a word is valid. So I think that something like a two-dimensional language like I'm describing is possible because the world shouldn't even be able to decide that a word is valid. Like, it's just that the most original thing about something that's created, I would say, is maybe the word. I think that words kind of dictate a lot about what happens in the world, and like miscommunication between two countries is ultimately what leads to a lot of wars and problems in the world. Miscommunication between different languages, sure, but even if they both know the same language, people invoking different sections of the territory of one word that they're both using causes miscommunication and leads to problems. But partially what I'm saying is how the word makes an invention legally binding. Like at the point that the iPhone was invented, like the most original thing that you can look to as proof of the invention is like the word, and only if the word is spreading to people's lips will it be reflected that the invention is like spreading to people's lives, like that the phone is getting into people's hands. I think my headset is about to die. Oops. So I was ill prepared today, but the second it dies is when this episode ends, unless I can make it another like 10 minutes or something. But like the word is kind of legally binding proof. It's just like at the point that something is invented, a word is invented along with it. It's just that like the word is this legally binding contract, and like, okay, so my headset batteries are low. They're not, and my headset isn't dead. the word is contractual proof of the invention enough. But I'm saying like, and it's so original, like it originates at the same time as the invention. It's so original that you can actually look to the word and how much that contract is shared and agreed upon by different people, like different people using the word, using the thing at their disposal. Like people using the word are agreeing to the contract that is created when the invention is created, where the contract is like describes the territory that's created with the word and the invention. But anyway, this isn't the main point that I'm trying to make. I'm trying to say how multiplication and division is something like the ultimate categorizer, the ultimate two things that the original cell should split into is multiplication and division. This is what and I should have done this earlier, but I guess maybe not because it's like abstract, so people don't really want to hear about mathematics. But if you're somebody who's listened to this podcast a lot, you probably would want to hear it. But multiplication and division is something like the most original pair of opposites, or it's like the best pair of opposites that you could use to categorize all things in the world into two groups, all things in language into two groups, because you would have to be, if you wanted to graduate from a one-dimensional language to a two-dimensional one, you are describing a division, and so then you have to go into what a division means. And division is a really difficult concept to understand because it's like when somebody creates a television, what they've done is they have isolated out or divided out a new thing, a new specific point, a new territory. They've isolated that territory out from nothingness, and then they've created it to be a specific observable thing. Probability wave collapsed into something observable with that specific invention and with any specific invention. And that is, you can describe all of that as division, ultimately. Like at the point that an idea is isolated out, that we are able to define it as one thing. This is division, but what's interesting about multiplication and division is that multiplication comes first and division comes second. And if my headset cuts out, I'll explain this at the beginning of the next episode. But not that you needed it anyway, not that you want, but you will get it later at the beginning of the next episode. But not before I sink this putt. Not before I sink this putt here. Which I didn't do.
Just missed.
Not before I miss this putt. But pretty much
Straightforward 5-footer to
what's
me.
interesting about multiplication-division relationship is that it expresses a clear chronological order where multiplication happens before division in time or something like that. It's more like division goes forwards in time because the way that a cell divides, two cells, like when a baby is born, at the point that there's two cells, this happens later in time than when there's one cell. This is the same thing as multiplication and division. Same way that a cell is divided out from the original cell to create a second one. This happens, the two cells happen after the one cell. That's division. The one cell is multiplication because the one cell represents how backwards in time these two cells are factors in the product that is the original cell. And you might say, that's BS. That's bullshit. You wouldn't be able to, it's not necessarily that way. I'm just saying how this multiplication division relationship, multiplication and division are inverses of each other. And they're inverses of each other as described as their directions in time. And the product that originates the two factors that are parsed out of it to create the division. It's just like when a second cell is created, that's a derivative. And the original cell is the integral. But this is why I'm saying mathematics a lot of modern day mathematics is just describing the relationship between multiplication and division, interestingly enough. Calculus is describing multiplication versus division because the fundamental theorem of calculus is about how integrals are inverses of derivatives. And essentially, or at least the way that I see it in my opinion, multiplication and division are also inverses of each other because they are directions that are conflated with each other over the same spectrum, essentially. They're directions the same way that a spectrum has a forward direction and a backward direction at the same time. This is like two ends of a spectrum, multiplication and division. But anyway, let me more clearly say what's significant about what I'm saying. Like, calculus is about the relationship between integrals and derivatives. The integral is the original thing, like the original cell. Derivative describes how there is a derivative, ultimately. But basically, according to calculus, the integral is the space, and then the derivative is the line around the space. But this is also illustrated in geometry with the formulas for area and circumference. The area is the space, formula for area is the space, the circumference is like you describe the circumference of the circle in more particular language in the area of calculus when you break down what a derivative is. The derivative is the circumference, the area is the integral. But what I'm saying is how you draw around a space, like when you draw a circle, that line that you draw is a derivative, or is the second thing, or is the second cell that's created, or the point at which there are two cells made from one, because the space that was there before you drew a line around it is already there. That's the first thing that's there, the same way that multiplication happens before division, or one cell happens before two. The second thing that's created is a line around the original space. That's the second thing, or they call it a derivative, ultimately. But it's kind of like the thing that's divided out, but it's only the point at which you create, and I'm talking about enclosed territories, not just a line that encloses a space, which is the same thing as creating a definition, isolating out a territory, or inventing something, creating a new specific point. The only way you create a new specific point is if you create a second thing, which is like a line around the space that already existed. But this is described in the most abstract, branch of mathematics is called set theory. And the fundamental, the most significant things about set theory are that they say that the first instance of anything at all that you're allowed to describe is the empty set, which set theory denotes as a zero with a line through it diagonally. And they say that the second thing that exists is the set of the empty set, which is denoted with brackets around the empty set, or brackets around the zero with the diagonal line through it. And in this case, I would argue they're just describing the relationship between multiplication and division, or the relationship between the original space and then the defining thing that you put around it, because that's what the brackets are for. My headset's about to die, so
It's half a chance of being whole, this one.
keeps making noises like it's about to die.
From a tough break.
And I'm even par through 6 holes. I met my goal of making it through 6 holes, but
And with that, he'll stay right
basically there's the empty set is the original, and the set of the empty set. This is the same thing as when you have a space and then you draw a line around it. Once you draw the circle,
happens here on the 7th.
you've created a set of things, the same way that the second instance, according to set theory, is the set of the empty set, because the set denotes how there's a definer for the empty set or something containing it. That's the same thing you do when you draw a circle. You have a space, but then you draw a circle in order to say that something is containing the space. So it's like geometry, calculus, regular mathematics, like arithmetic. Calculus, set theory, arithmetic, and geometry all describe the relationship between multiplication and division, or like this original thing and then a thing surrounding it. But
Going with a 3-wood here. That's a little wayward.
Needed to take a little less club on that approach.
see, Barge has a lot of acne.
This would be a great up and down from this spot.
Barge got a lot of acne. He got a lot more acne since the last time that you saw him. But I know. Okay, so like. Oh, that's a good chip. It's gonna go in the hole.
Oh, Rich, that's the special.
When I'm 1 under through 7. I think I will continue the stunning conclusion of
Look at that one.
abstract mathematics that I'm describing. I'll talk about it some other time. But point being, math is just talking about the relationship between multiplication and division, which are opposites of each other. But I'm saying how if we understood division more, we would end up
Always like to see your name.
we would end up expressing how
that thing.
things that are created are different from the original things. Like, you can only create something by drawing a definition around it, but pretty much language needs to be divided into two categories, one of them being the it's like the way that you would create two-dimensional language is if you separated out time and space, essentially, or where time is like the thing that's always there or always continuing. Like we always have the opportunity to comprise time or comprise a few seconds of our lives by like committing some action that somebody else sees. Like we can fulfill time because time is always there. It's this ongoing forever template that's just like surrounding us always. But like unless you do something in it, then you're not creating anything. But ultimately, like maybe division is reserved for practical division is reserved for practical things because that's when you divide something out to actually describe it. And then multiplication is the ethereal mess of product out of which you can divine, if that's the right word, discern factors. Not that it doesn't happen the other way. It's just like everything is a product, and it is the new cell that's created isn't just a derivative, it's also a product for the next cells that are going to be divided off of it. The same way that subjectivity, objectivity are conflated over each other. Multiplication, division are conflated everywhere. Because any derivative is also like a product that's about to create its own derivatives. And so this is a limit of language. That's a limit of language. And how do we create two-dimensional language from one-dimensional language? I don't really know, but I guess like I'd say that mathematics might be a place that you look, since math as a language is already described to be the mysterious, like this profound thing. Like maybe the secrets that they're hiding, there's something to it. And maybe over time people get smarter so that we concern ourselves with languages that previous generations didn't understand. Yeah, I'm in way too serious of a mood today. But I'm going to continue my career in the next episode. Thank you for watching this, the 100th episode, an anticlimactic one. And still more to come in the future. I had talked about maybe doing just 100. I'm going to do more than 100. Thanks for listening. Also, if you have listened to this point, my request is that you don't watch the thing on Twitch unless you follow me, because if you watch this episode on Twitch, the view ultimately gets lost because the Twitch streams are only on Twitch for a few weeks and then they're gone. So that's like a wasted view. If you viewed on Twitch, that's fine. Just I would want you to also follow me. So unless you're following me on Twitch, don't view it on Twitch. That's my request to you. Thanks for listening. Bye.